And then he's like, well, Mama, can you get my teeth whitened for me? I said, I'm 47 years old.
You got one better than popcorn.
Why would I like yours? Because he's getting his braces off and he's afraid of falling off. So he said, well, you know, take me back on my safety. He said, what's that really on there?
Hello, Tommy Boy. What's going on?
Boy, you don't care who you sit with, do you?
Well,
He didn't have a choice.
I didn't have a choice.
See, I sit down beside him. Come on over here. Down there playing.
We got 3 minutes.
I had about 5 minutes.
Well, I just had a slice. Somebody bought it for me.
Well, it's new ground, you know where you get oak tree, 3 foot high. Okay. I got that disc now. Pop back to make this room every time I get there. I just hit the nose, tractor drag it, throw the disc it off. It'll drive this down. If I ever get them planted, it'll get a bottom to it. I don't know what he did with his planter to be home, but I so did. I may have to have some new mouth bleeding on that.
That's always done that.
Yes, he can.
they planted stuff out there to
Actually, he
me.
was talking about that trail.
Last week.
And then Kevin there.
I think it was,
That's all I cook on. It's very rare for me to cook.
Reason I'm here,
Garage door.
I'll tell you.
Farm big in your county.
One of them in there.
No, he's from Springfield. They farm 4 or 5 acres. Anyway, they farmed all that out there around me, and they come in there and plant it one afternoon. Well, they sprayed it 2 or 3 weeks before, and a few days later, they had a tractor, it looked like a doodle. Man, he run over there all the time or 2 with that rig, it was wide and just wouldn't be as long. But, and then they come in there and planted it 2 or 3 days later.
Oh no, he was in there disking this morning planting that house.
And then after they planted it, about 2 or 3 days later, they come in there and sprayed it. And I don't know what the boy that son that really was, Gary Ken, if I can do it.
I just remembered it.
Anyway, they sprayed it. Boy, you talking about a smell or odor out there for 2 or 3 days after they sprayed that stuff.
Didn't spray it like chicken food, did they?
I wonder what that spray is.
You ever put that color?
Yes, my neighbor's there.
Smells good, don't it?
Fitzpatrick does it.
Through it.
400 acres down there by the house, and it stays for a while. Up in Middle Tennessee, there's already types of chicken farmers. That's what they all went to. And Larry Waters put it on his house.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call this meeting in order. We may be a minute early. Good for us, we'll get in a minute. Quick. We always start each meeting with a prayer, and I'd like to ask Mr. Wilson if he'd lead us in a prayer, please.
Heavenly Father, thank you for all the benefits you give to this electric company, keeping them safe and good equipment to work with. And Father, we just ask you to be with them all the time, be with this board meeting, that everything will go right. Things that should be, and what's not. We just thank you for everything you do for us. We ask this in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Each of the board members should have a copy of last month's minutes, board meetings. Everybody had a chance to look at those, read them. additions or corrections? Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I make the motion we accept it.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All in favor of approving those minutes as written, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, a like sign? None, and they'll be approved, and I'll sign no. Our next order of business is nearly always the same, and that's we open the floor to the public. We got a couple of folks, if anybody'd like to say something, this is a good time to do it. In that case, we'll move on to the next one.
I was trying to raise my hand.
Yes, yes.
Just in
Tom.
public, for the record, we all know that some of us interviewed today for the BCES job. And I want to commend the board, but I also want to congratulate the other two candidates, and however we move forward, I'll support whatever means necessary.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, look, number 5 is the general manager's report. That's our most favorite.
That's everybody's favorite part, isn't it?
Raymond's gonna miss this.
Oh,
He's not here.
Yeah, I am. But, I'm gonna continue on with the revised version down like you asked me to do. But I am gonna go over the sales and purchases and revenue, so. This month, sales was 12,644,014 kilowatt hours. Purchases was 13,292,981. As y'all know, that accounts for line loss. And I would say at that point, as we talked about the budget, right now we're running right on track. We're at 80% of the sales, and we're at 79.83% of purchase. So, our prediction on the sales and purchases is running right on track for right now. So anyway, moving on down to item 59, that produced an electric sales revenue of $1,723,421. The cost to purchase power was $1,010,097, resulting in a net sales of $713,324. Then when you add in the non-rate revenue stuff, from the forfeiture discounts, the miscellaneous service revenue, the rent from electric property, other revenue, that resulted in a total operating revenue this month of $782,796. Moving on to operating expense, as you can see, our distribution and customer accounts expense were right in line, nothing to report there, as well as customer services. But if you'll notice on line 70, under sales expense, that has to do with our advertising, and you see the negative $978, and what that amounted to in the previous month, or in this month, we had got some reimbursement from TVA on the, where we do our radio ads and those kinds of things. So by bringing those payments in, that reduced that from a positive $492 to $978, which is actually additional revenue for us, from where TVA paid their they split our advertising costs, with the radio. And then under admin and general expense, under item 71, you can see that went up a little bit. But that was because in the month prior to that, we received 4 TDOT reimbursements where we have to do engineering on these TDOT projects, and in that previous month where it was $139,808, that's where we had gotten the reimbursements. So it went back up to the normal, what we would normally see at the $164,187, resulting in a total operating expense of $264,856. Then under maintenance expense, there's nothing really to report there. That's just our monthly operating costs. So the total maintenance expense for the month was $106,247. Moving on down to other operating expense, this is depreciation, taxes and equivalents.
Those are all, annualized numbers that Carla puts in. She knows exactly what they are. So, you know, we go over this every month, but those are just the annualized number for depreciation and the accrual for the tax equipment, which includes the payment in lieu of tax to the county. There's also in that. So that resulted in a total operation and maintenance expense of $585,820, leaving an operating income of $196,976. And then other income, that's interest income, you see that was $1,737. And then you see the interest on the long-term debt, which comes off of that number of $12,446. Which, as y'all know, we make our interest payment on our debt in June, and then in December we do the P&I, the principal and interest, and then the amortization of the debt discount for the bond. That's annualized number 2 at the 905. So taking all that into consideration, that produced a positive net income this month of $185,356. No questions on that page. We'll move over to plan additions. And I know you can't see it exactly in the numbers here, but this month, and like I've been telling you, we've had these big projects like the double circuit line at Holiday. We closed out a project up on Nickeltown Road where we moved the line. So anyway, all that went into poles, conductors, transformers, and all that. That was reflected in poles where that was closed out, the $206,824, overhead conductor, the $292,304, and then the transformers, just normal purchase of transformers that we do. Meters, we purchased some more meters and some CTs or metering equipment, CTs and PTs. So that resulted in a total distribution plant cost of this month of $555,987. But what I like to say about that, as we talked about the budget, trying to budget it so that it's as close as we can to accurate. But in this business, like I told you, for a long time, wind events, mechanical failures, things like that can throw it all out of whack. But right now we're running right on target for this time of year. In that we're at a little over 70% of our total budget. We still have a few more projects to close out, so I think we've done very well on our budget and predicting how much would be spent. Then moving on down to general plan, if you notice under office equipment, line 391, that was where, let's see, that had to do with the incentive we received for the ultraviolet rated lights that we put in our heating and cooling system, because of the COVID stuff, and then TDA reimbursed us for part of that. And then nothing spent on the rest of it other than under communications equipment. That was where Carla and Leanne closed out they closed out the work order that we did on EVA, on stringing all the fiber and putting that in. And that number, the 106,925, that reflects our labor and overheads that went into that. Nothing out of cash there. But I would say to that we did an indefeasible right of use for the People's Telephone Company down there, and the material cost, which would have come out of cash, was $61,743.35 that would have come out of cash. So you kind of see that went over on that budget line item. That was something that we did the budget that we didn't know was coming up. But that was a tremendous thing that, we got them to pay for all that. They paid for make ready. We changed out, 30 or 40 poles down there, didn't we, Brett, that they also paid for. But we do have to show where the labor and overheads went into that. So yeah, that's just over on that one line item. But then this month for the total general plant was $106,835 with a total plant of $662,822. And then when you put all that into perspective, we're right at 80% of that budget spent to this point. And that's closed out our big job at Holiday. We've got a couple smaller jobs we're gonna close out, but I think by the end of the year, we're gonna be running right on track with what we had budgeted. So I feel very good about that, and I think that our whole team did good as far as doing the budget. And I know, that's gonna come up, but the same thought process and everything was put into this same budget, and I think we're right on track with that as well. Do y'all have any questions on the first couple pages? All right, if not, I'm not gonna go over this comparison thing. We look at it every year, it's just a snapshot, at the same month last year as this year about what sales and revenue was. And then, once we went to the end of the month billing and aligned our retail and wholesale rate, that allowed us to see what the true, line losses were, and that runs anywhere from around 5.5%. Although this month it was down just a little bit, 4.88%. So not really much to report on that page, unless y'all have any questions about it.
I'm just glad that it is staying that low.
Yeah.
We're there.
And we went to the, and like I told y'all, when I started, we were at 8% line loss. You figure that, a total revenue of 23 million, 1% of that's $230,000. So just, and again, you can't spend the millions that we've spent upgrading our system just to reduce line losses, but that is a benefit of doing that by having bigger conductor, more efficient lines. So, you're talking about $500,000 a year. That was just kind of icing on the cake that we did along with our 10-year plan by putting in bigger conductor and making our system more efficient. So then moving on to the next page on cash, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, like we always do, this month we went up in cash by $119,035.03, and you don't have it on yours, but you just get that number by taking the $2,186,601.36 and subtracting the $2,061,566.33, and then that gives you the $119,35.03 in increase in cash. And again, like I say, I don't get too awfully excited about that because we have some big expenditures coming up, like the $800,000 to the county for the payment of the tax and some other big expenses coming up. So that will go down before the end of the year. So with that, unless anybody has any questions, that's my general manager's report for this month.
What month is that paid to county? Is that July?
Do
You
what?
present that to the county in July?
In lieu of taxes.
The in lieu tax.
On June 30th, I always take the check up there the last week in June. Yeah, that's when we pay it. Yeah. I've been doing that ever since I've been there. Wherever mayor's in there, I carry it up and give it to them. And the same with the little bit that we pay to Big Sandy, as well as Kansas. So, that we pay them the tax too.
You pay the same thing.
There was a special exemption that TVA had, and they started in 1999. And I don't know exactly, it had something to do with the school system. And then, Marcus brought it to our attention 2 or 3 years ago. And I went over all that with you and what it would be, and Carla worked the formula. And so, the ones at TVA that came up with that, for whatever reason, was gone. And the decision was made then to just pay the city of Big Sandy and the city of Camden payment of the tax too. Which, that's based on, a lot of the payment of the tax is based on what the amount of your plant is worth within the city limits of each of those, in which we have very little infrastructure in Big Sandy. We have a couple substations, here in Camden, but the majority of our plant is within the county. So that's where the big payment comes from. But yeah, it's a good question.
Well, I'm from Big Sandy, I wanna go put a substation down there, so we can.
Well, there's one down there, it's just not in the city limits.
We should have moved it a little bit. Yeah, it's out there. By mile.
So anyway, y'all, unless you have any more questions, that's, my general manager's report.
Any questions for the manager guys and ladies? Not letting them mark it off. We'll move up to number 6, old business, and it's any old business, but we have specifically our discussion about the budget. Any discussion about that?
Well, I just say, you know, I went over it with y'all last month, and I know we spent a lot of time on it. And I tried to be just as absolutely thorough with you on every aspect of that. I gave you, every account number. I showed you how all the salaries were spread across the different accounts, the budgets, what the projected net income would be, as well as cash, and all of the big projects and the equipment that we're planning to buy. And I think, you know, we put a lot of time into doing that budget. I think it's very reasonable. Overall, we're going to be able to complete the big projects we're talking about. One of those includes changing out some relay, one of the substations, as well as reconducting a line going out Highway 70. That's another one of our last big projects. You know, replacing a service truck, and several other things there. Let's see, what all we did. Oh yeah, we're gonna have to replace some cameras, and then just changing out some transformers that need to be done, adding some regulators, and then because of a safety issue, our pole trailer is not a tandem pole trailer, and now then we have a whole lot heavier class poles and they're a lot longer. That was brought up from a safety aspect, and so we put a pole trailer in there, as well as another trailer for our skid steer. And then also, we put doing some fiber, going from Mountain Ride to Strawberry Gables. We're gonna string fiber down through there. We plan on leasing the excess capacity out of that, but that's gonna allow us to pick up some of our gatekeepers and another regulator bank down through there, and then we'll lease out the excess capacity. And when we get that done, if TEC or whoever wants to lease fiber from us, now they'll have a complete loop coming up 641, going back through, coming back around the way they did, coming all the way back down to Strawberry Gables and down that way, and then this will carry it on back down to Mountain Ride, where we have fiber there, so they'll have a true loop around there. And you know, as y'all know, they had a meeting, they had some folks here last week signing people up for fiber and EVA. And while they were down there, they got a lot of requests, people talking about getting it on Birdsong, even over Shiloh Church Road, getting to the theater over there, as well as some commercial accounts with Birdsong. But there's a great interest in it for it up there, and I think that's going to move in a big way. Of course, that don't affect us. You know, we're putting the fiber up, they're paying for it. And then any make ready, as far as having to put in taller poles, all that kind of thing. And then we'll just lease the excess capacity. So we have all those big projects on there. Like I told you, also included a 2% cost of living increase for the employees. I showed you also how all that would be spread and what the total of that would be, and it was like $43,000 would be approximately the total of the cost of living raise based on the base salaries, and showed you kind of how all that was spread in all these different accounts. But I'm ready to answer any questions that you have.
the state, did everybody get a cost of living with the state this year, do you know? I had him,
With the state,
or federal, on social security, you know what they get out of it, you remember?
on social security?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about social security. This is just a 2% cost of living raise, for the electric system. And it was based on, actually in the March CPI, it was 1.7, but, some of our employees are starting to fall a little behind, and I felt like it was reasonable to ask for a 2%. So I just felt that was very reasonable.
Well, let me ask you this, on that, you take the person making 40,000 at 2%, that ain't much money at all, what is that, $60 more? That ain't much at all for them. But you take salary, you take up to 100,000, that's, $2,000 a raise they get. I know the workers need it, but I don't know what it does, it keeps, you had $2,000 that, then next year you had two more, they're 4,000, they get a way bigger advantage than the workers. I just feel like we need to give it to the workers if we do anything on it.
So you're wanting to exempt the management
Well-
people from a raise? Well, let me just say this to that point.
To me, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, wait, let me kind of clarify here a little bit on that. Based on the, salary survey, that we do with TVPPA, all of the management people, I'll give you an example. My job, based on just average for a company with this amount of revenue and this many customers, I'm 17% below what average. Not highest, but on average. Carl is 6% under. But the linemen and the CSRs, they are like 0.58%. They're all right in the range, of where they should be. So, in my 43 years, one time they did, and this was a long time ago, a flat 50-cent raise. And at the time on the right-of-way crew, it was like a 10 or 15% increase. But then for the management people, it was a 0.5% increase. So, I don't think at this point that it's fair, I don't think it's fair to all the other employees to try to exempt them. I think the fair way to do it, because there's not a gap that is grown to where they're way out of whack on their salaries. And I don't think that's unreasonable at all at this point in time.
I just see the big difference, the ones up there, 100,000, they're gonna get a $2,000 increase. Where the man that's making 40,000, he ain't gonna get that.
He's gonna get $800 increase.
Yes, I mean, he gonna get.
But the person that's doing that has got years and years of experience, and he's got a whole lot higher paid job.
Yeah, I know it, but I just feel bad the way it is, like, I don't know, I mean, to keep going on, now, you say your salary like that, I don't know, you got, I guess I'm looking at 41 employees, for that kind of salary bid, and make it just, how do we keep rates down for the, consumer if we don't hold the salaries down like that, just getting up there like that. I don't know nobody in this county getting $117,000 a month, for this type situation we got. I don't know how that.
Well, we're planning on lowering rates, but cutting a little bit out of salaries is not gonna allow you to lower rates. There's a lot of, what's gonna cause to lower rates, and we're working on this, is it's a multifaceted, thing. And it includes reducing customer charge, it includes, customer charge, maybe some off kilowatt, what the kilowatt hour cost, and then for commercial customers, the only thing we get from that is just what their historic maximum demand is, and their customer charge, and the rest that's a pass-through, but it gives them an opportunity to save a lot of money. And so that's where if you wanna lower rates, that's where it's gonna come from. But by reducing the employees' raises, that's not gonna cause you to lower residential rates.
But I'm for the employees, I'm for that, I'm for them to making good money. But I'm just saying the salary's done up to that big figure, that they getting a bigger boost by percentage than it would be if you just went with dollar figures.
Well, right now, I just gotta respectfully, I see what you're saying, but I just don't think it's fair to, say you're gonna cap a certain dollar amount and give those folks a 5 or 10% raise and not give anybody else a raise. Because again, you know, all of us management people are, based on the salary survey, are way underpaid now. And yeah, it's a lot of money, but this is a highly skilled operation that takes years and years of experience to get to where you are, and people have to be compensated for it. But what I was telling you, that's where your rate reduction would come from, is through customer charges, kilowatt hour sales, and demand charges. Reducing employee salaries a little bit. I mean, like I said, the total of it, of 2% is only $43,000. That would, I mean, if you didn't give anybody a raise, or if you give the whole $43,000 to 10 people, you're still not, it's just not enough money to reduce rates. But what that, I mean, you know, it's not a lot of money, but it's a morale booster, when they get a raise. And one time in my 43 years, during the recession in 2008, that's the only time ever that there wasn't some kind of cost of living raise. It was when we had that recession in 2008.
I rested, somebody else wants to say anything.
Further discussion, any of the board members? Questions?
That's just the advantage of being in that position. I mean, higher your salary, you're gonna get more money, 2% raise. I don't see no problem with it.
I think I certainly see Ward's idea, and then I turn right around and I see that we can't hire an engineer because we're not paying enough money to hire an engineer, you know, and I understand that out of what, 150, how many electric companies do we have in the southeast? 157?
153 now.
153.
Because Gibson bought Hickman Fulton.
Okay.
I had 154, but Gibson bought Hickman Fulton.
You know, when they come up and say we're the lowest paid of the bunch, that actually make me feel like it's the best move. I don't have, if I had a solution for it, as we talked about earlier, I'll throw it out there in a minute. 2%, not a great amount. I don't know what the Social Security is.
Yeah, I don't
have a clue.
And that just brings up the conversation, we're talking about it.
It won't be 2%, I'm sure.
It just brings up a good conversation, I think, there's something to think about. I mean, I thought about it for the ones that don't make it. That's where the hard work is. Of course, everybody works, I realize that, but, that's just my thought.
That was a good thought.
I'm gonna pass it on.
Anything else? Any discussion, any moves?
I have a real quick question, if you don't mind. Did you say that somebody makes $110,000 a month, or did you mean a year?
No, a year.
No, you.
No.
Okay.
I make some sense of that.
Cause we heard you said something about 110,000 a month. I'm thinking, who is making that kind of money?
I want that job.
Just mispaid.
I want that job. When do we have to have the budget?
We need it this month, and we typically do it this month. You know, I brought it to you last month. we went on, you know, we spent 3 hours going over it. And we really needed this month to start getting what we needed ordered, and moving on with it. We already started one of the projects that's in here because we just needed to get started on it. And I couldn't see that y'all were gonna say, you know, this rebuilding, continuing building the line to the interstate, or we could eventually tie in with Lexington, which I think would be good for both of us, and they're gonna build out to the interstate, and that could be good for the sewer plant up there, Ward. If we, you know, have a big deal, it could be fed either way, so, you know, I just don't, I don't really have anything to change, and I just, I can't see putting it off.
When you said Lexington, it throws me off, we're talking Decatur County, right?
Decatur County, yeah.
Yeah, that's hard for me to get that right around my head. Okay, members, anybody got a suggestion, or does anybody wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
As written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve it as it is. Is there any other discussion on that before we vote? Now's the time. None? We'll vote then. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed by like sign. Motion passes. We have a budget for one more year. What is that noise that's going on?
It's a new phone, but I don't know how to operate it.
That's outer space music.
Yeah. That's what you up with it.
Scare me. Alright, that's our big item on the old business. Any other old business? I got a question. Where's Brett? Well, we were talking earlier today and before everybody was here about having some problems maybe in the Big Sandy area about getting the cable people getting their appropriate spacing and things.
Yes.
Is that gonna be something that's gonna come back to bite us later? Is that a safety issue that?
That's something we're trying to take care of at this month.
So we're doing that now.
Yeah, we're doing
right?
that now.
Do you?
It should've been done years ago before me and Raymond even started, and they let it get by, and that's something that we're making right safety wise. Keep them out of our workspace, safety reasons, and, it's just the way it needs to be.
But do you anticipate any major problems or blowouts, or it's just gonna take a little while to get it done?
We're working on it. It's just gonna take a little while, you know. Like I said, we're doing it all hot.
I just didn't know if you needed something from us to get that done. We want it to be right. Obviously, the safety deal, from the board's point of view, we're personally responsible
Yeah,
for that.
no, me and Raymond set it in motion, Scott, and, you know, and we were trying to take care of it.
Okay, good enough. You need us, we're here.
Okay.
Can I report on one other
Yes,
thing?
yes.
You may recall there was some litigation where we had a truck that was backing up and, another vehicle came around it and caught the corner. They sued the electric system over that. And, this week we reached a settlement, so that case is gonna be settled and dismissed, so. The insurance company's paying a little bit of money, but not a lot, so we'll get that resolved.
So what you at?
The company's not out anything, the insurance company distributors that we insure through is paying the settlement.
And then the other lawsuit that we have with Wright Gravel, that case has been dismissed.
Case was dismissed as well.
Dismissed, and then they had their 30 days to appeal, they didn't appeal it, so that's history.
So I'll be litigation free now.
I'll be litigation free.
Yeah. Alright, old business. Any other old business before we move on? None, I want to call that complete. We're going to new business. Any new business to come before the board? Alright, we spent the better part of the day talking about our new general manager's position.
I do have some, James Warren, on a few of them comments.
Go ahead.
And I'm gonna address the whole board on this. Let me just start off by saying, I literally broke my back for this company, and that, in a literal sense, due to a lack of safety at the time. This was years ago. Broke a couple vertebrae in my back. I was able to get over it. I was young. That's a whole lot of the reason I'm in the shape I'm in now. I had a lot of problem with it. And then also, from the day I was hired, you know, it was drilled into me about saving our sick leave. That could be applied to your retirement. And I've done that. The time is accrued for, it's already accrued. And all the other employees my age that come up, you know, they have the option to draw theirs out and get paid 100% for it. Except for me, and I understand that. But in all these years, especially as manager, I've worked thousands of hours above and beyond my regular duties here. Thousands of hours, literally thousands. And never asked for anything. I never asked y'all to pay me any overtime. I never asked for any bonus. I never asked for any kind of performance pay. I was advised to do so, but I just never did do it. I would like to ask the board to pay me for all my sick leave, which is another 40%, and it comes out to about $80,000. We have the money, it's in here, and it would mean a whole lot to me on my retirement, because that would add to my salary to increase those high 5 years. I'm not asking you to give me anything that I didn't work for. I worked for it all my life, and it would just mean a whole lot to me if I could be paid for it. I understand I can't do like the other employees and just sign a letter of intent and draw it out and stay on the payroll. But I would like to be paid for the sick leave that I've accrued for my retirement. Like I say, it would mean a lot to me. Again, I spent thousands and thousands of hours working these storms, never asked for one thing. But I really wish y'all would vote to pay me for all my sick leave. It would mean a whole lot to me in my retirement going forward. And so I really wish y'all do that for me. It would mean a lot.
In your position as man, you're the only person that doesn't qualify for overtime pay, am I right?
Well, I qualify for it, and the board could have done it if I would come and ask you. Like,
You didn't.
But I never did.
I'm just asking, trying to get it.
Yes,
So all the time you put in over 40 hours, you just didn't get paid?
I never asked for it. Never.
How did it come about that they get 100%, you only get?
Well, when that came up, because they can sign a letter of intent, and then they can just draw all their time out. But I understand the manager couldn't do that. You couldn't, you know, have the manager sign a letter of intent and draw his time out. So that's kind of how that came to be. And there was a lot of other things going on at the time. I don't want to get into the rackets and the things of the past, but it was some bad decisions made at the time because of some bad actions, let me just say. But, you know, not only that, I got exempted from longevity pay, which everybody else gets. And again, that was a result of another bad action. And I just happened to fall in a place right after all that happened. Anyway, that's the deal. And I really would. It would mean a lot to me. It would mean a lot to me over a long period of time if I live long enough to draw an extra, you know, $100 or $200 a month, because that would calculate into what my highest 5 years was you know, out of the previous 10, and that's how they determine what your monthly payment was gonna be. And that would just boost that up a little bit too. And then that would give me just a little more of a nest egg. But again, I'm not asking you to do something that I haven't worked for, that I haven't earned, that's not already on the books as a liability, and the money's there to do it.
I agree with you with the sick pay. If you have not used your sick days, I think you should be paid for them. But when you're, if you're on salary, then you shouldn't get overtime. And, we was asking one of the applicants, about it, and they said, you know, that you're the only one that didn't, get paid for overtime, which is, you know, really the way it's supposed to be. And,
Well, like I said, I never asked for it, but I know most managers, they'll
well,
get some.
and really you shouldn't. If you're on salary, you shouldn't ask for overtime. But because that extra hours of work
Yes, sir.
is supposed to be built into your salary because you're a manager. But as far as sick pay, if you haven't taken any, you know, sick days, whatever you are, if you have, whatever sick days you have left, I feel like you ought to be compensated for it.
Thank you.
Do I hear that in the form of a motion, Ms. Powers?
Let me just say, I think that's policy, so you're either gonna have to, in the motion, either exempt the policy or change the policy. I mean, you don't have to change it totally right now, but you would have to, show it an exemption from the policy.
I like to make a motion, we table it till next month to let us buy into that. You need to give us what you asking for and how many days you got, or whatever you got, something on paper that we know what we're looking at.
Well, I can tell you, the additional pay is about $80,000.
But that's your vacation pay you're talking about.
That's vacation,
But she's talking about sick days.
that's sick days.
That's
what-
sick days and vacation pay. You ain't
No.
got that many sick days.
That many sick days.
We've had
I
this
mean, sick
argument.
days.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Time or two, we've had this argument, when I think everybody should be treated equally. And it's always been usually for the guy on the bottom of the totem pole instead of the guy on the top. But I'm not gonna argue against the guy at the top that getting treated as good as the guy at the bottom. Come on.
But the policy we've got in higher,
Yeah.
it has it, and I think we need,
We
let's
may
take
have
on
to-
and let John to see what he
we may have
figures
to
out on it.
approve that.
Well, I say, you either might change the policy or just say, this is gonna be,
I don't think the
we're
policy
gonna,
doesn't need to be looked at.
exempt the policy.
They could just make it, they could just make an
Exemption
exemption.
to this
They
policy.
can make an exception for this and then negotiate that with whoever the new manager is.
Yes.
That would be the time
Well,
to
the
change.
whole-
That we take it.
The whole theory at the time was that you can't be without a manager, and therefore we can't let the manager do like you allow every other employee, and that is basically go home on 11 and 10 and keep growing salary. But the board at the time said we can't do that because then, there's nobody to be the manager, so. And then there was reasons at the time that the board didn't wanna pay the manager, 100%, like every other employee gets. And Raymond has just fallen victim to that.
Well, again, I've laid it all out, but, I'm leaving June 30th, and CSA needs to know that amount of money so they can go ahead and calculate it, so I can start receiving my first check.
I'm sorry.
I had
No, I don't think that was.
She never did, I
She
had.
didn't ask her, but I think she did
Yeah.
answer if she.
She did.
Scott, are you looking for the?
Yeah, I've got the sick leave policy.
We all wanna see it, but I think we need to revisit that, but that ain't today's
Yeah.
argument. So, we can't table it if there's not a motion, so we're gonna have to do something
I
different.
made a motion, that we bring it back next
That's
month,
fine.
think about it, for next month.
All right, and we got a second for the motion that we not make a decision today. We have a motion, but do we have a second for that?
I thought Ms. Powers made a motion to pay me.
She did
No,
not.
I just
We didn't go that far.
agree
Oh.
that, you know, that you should be paid for your sick pay, sick leave that you didn't take.
What we have now is a motion to postpone, but there's no second for that.
There's a
correct?
motion on the floor now to postpone it till next month, to give us time to think about it, let us look at the policy.
Well, I think we ought to, if we don't do it now, I mean, it's gonna be a problem for him, getting a paycheck.
Yes, it will be.
But,
Yeah,
Let's just
if he's gonna retire June first, the retirement needs to know what his
Right.
salaries have been, so that they can calculate what his retirement is.
okay, has he found the policy? Yeah.
I've got it, we went through the board review, I've got the one we marked up, and
Yeah.
I'm listening from my Bible, fresh print, I need to go print the fresh, the one we have.
Can I add one thing? The check, his last check will be like 2 days after the board meeting. So it's gonna have to be in process before that time, so if we wait until 2 days before his paycheck, it's gonna be hard to get it set up in the system if there's a decision that can be made before.
I'm gonna go print it, so.
Well, we're looking for an exception anyway, so our last motion was to postpone it until next month. That died for lack of, we're gonna have to do something if he gets paid. We're gonna have a motion to have an exception to the policy this time and vote on that. And if so, then he's gonna get paid. But we're gonna have to go back and revisit that policy if we decide we're gonna keep it or not.
So we have to wait till he's back, is it?
We don't have to.
Just
We
put
don't
on
have an
the,
exception.
just put on the agenda next month to review,
You
or
put
at
that
some
on
point
the
to review
agenda.
that particular policy.
We're doing that right now, I'm seeing her write down, we're gonna do that next month, but we need a motion, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna need a motion to have an exception, and we're gonna have to vote on that
I'll
now.
make that motion.
We have a motion to give Raymond an exception, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second, we need discussion further on that. None?
I'll say something.
Go ahead.
It's my thought as a person. I worked 40 years myself in construction. I knew what I got paid. Running made $117,000 a year for what he had. I just don't see his board writing another check for $80,000 more when he do what he's getting. He got that $117,000 when this man or that man, what are they gonna do when they leave? They ain't gonna get that.
Let me say something else.
I agree.
Let me say something.
But that's my thought as a board member, I just want you to discuss.
Sure, it is, you're.
Just feel like we're cutting our heads off when we write an $80,000 check out, when it's not there, but you just wanna give it to some of these other workers, if you're gonna do that. I mean, it's a
They're
pretty
getting, they're
But
getting theirs.
I mean, they are, but they ain't getting $117,000 a year. They getting 3 times their wages.
Being in the position he's in.
Well, anyway,
Okay.
that's my thought.
Any other discussion? We're gonna vote now on the exception for Raymond to get paid. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed by like sign?
I don't,
You
I don't
opposed?
vote for it.
Okay, we got one opposed, 4, motion passes. Raymond's gonna get his sick leave paid, and we've got the secretary that's gonna have on the agenda to review that policy if we need to change it. Which it sounds like we do need to change it, but we're gonna look at that next month. Alright, let's go again, I'll let you do business. Any other new business? We spent nearly the entire day reviewing the candidates for our new general manager's position. I think we need to have some discussion on that. And I'll open the floor.
Well, I think our discussion would be, I think it should be between the board, the discussions on the interviews that we had with those 3 applicants. Before anything else is done.
We were here last week, and I thought we heard that you didn't want to do that it had to be an open meeting. Am I wrong with that?
Normally, when somebody is discussing, if somebody is hired, that person is not present.
When I was hired, everybody was
That, yeah, I think you're right, if you have a meeting, it's gotta be open.
Yeah, it's a public
Okay.
meeting.
And when I was hired, everybody was present.
Okay.
Not only that, but the whole room was full. I mean,
Was the
it was
applicant,
packed, wasn't it, John?
was the person being voted on present?
Yes. Yeah, all 3 of us were.
Well, that's different from what I'm used to.
Well, that's the reason last week I wasn't sure what was happening, but that's how I understood it.
Okay.
Anyway, further discussion before I jump in about the candidates that we've interviewed.
We had 3 very good.
Ain't that the truth?
Yes, we did.
Either one of them would be good for this job. What Mayor started to you, what we've discussed it, or what we think. We're in the minutes, does it advertise that we want to appoint this position to be legal in the sunshine law? I know you went out to that, but it was made in not supposed to be a regular meeting. I don't know if you, I'm just saying, I don't know if you blink your eyes, but should we not advertise that we want to appoint this position? So it's in the minute, there's nothing in the minute says anything about this. That I can
I
find.
mean, in the agenda.
In any of the minutes, we've never opened it to the public. Now, you put it on the post thing, but that, according to what the street talk, is that we've not followed the sunshine law. I'll let Mary say what she wants to say, what she wants to.
Well, what you're trying to say is, the decision, to hold off on what we're doing today was decided on in an illegal meeting. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it's,
So anything that
show
was-
me where it has, I mean, if it has, if y'all think it's right, go with it. I mean, that's y'all's decision, but I don't think it's been advertised to the public, what we're doing. I mean, not right, there's nothing in the minutes showing, or you may find part of it in the minutes where, Joe, I'm saying. But finding in the minutes where we've discussed this, it's gonna happen for the public to be a part of it if they wanted to. I know you went out on that illegal bit we had and put it on the four square, on the buildings, but was it in the minutes, was that decision was made illegal out of the meetings of the public?
What decision?
Well, let John explain, I'm just telling you, I think we're out of the sunshine law, I think we're not following the rules. Now,
Okay, what rule are we not following? I'm asking.
Okay.
You know, I don't have any idea.
Well, I'm just saying, show will be different. Where is it in our minutes that we said we're gonna do this? So
You don't think the idea of our
It was in last month's minute that,
it's not in there.
that the hiring he was gonna have the hiring process and be interviewed for it.
It's not in there. No, he done that with text. He texted us on the cell phone that he's gonna go ahead and do it. The public is not aware of that, President. And I'm saying, I hate to be the one to bring the speech up, but just look at it and see. You got the same text I did. Did you get a text, Jerry, on it that it's gonna be? I got a text to tell me about it. It wasn't done at the table.
It was published on Facebook though.
Huh?
It was published on Facebook.
Yeah, well, I mean, but it wasn't by who gives us authority to do that, make that decision to do that? And that's what I'm saying. Legally, it's an open door. If people's called me then, brought this to my attention.
Talked about last time was publishing it, posting it, and all that was done. I thought that's what.
I was trying so hard to do just what everybody said we needed to do.
We did.
So if we have done something wrong again, I don't see that we did, but you can convince me if you can come up with a little more than just
Well,
what
I'm
we
just
said.
telling you, words of that in a minute that we all voted to do it. And that's what they're gonna pull when they come out and say it. In the previous minutes, did we ever discuss this in a meeting? A legal meeting?
But
We've
this
not.
is the meeting.
Well, this is right here today, and it's been public, we have a regular board meeting. Now, you can say today, all right, we're gonna appoint this thing next Thursday. And it'd be in the minutes.
Well, if we do it today, it'll be in the minutes of this month.
That's right. But you do it any time. I'm just saying, you're gonna be the ones that suffer with it when they come in the door to do. I just know there's a bunch of looking at it. And I'm just telling you what I've been told. And I understand what they're saying. If I really look in the legal minutes, that on April the 17th, we decided in that meeting that we decided it was wrong, that we was gonna post it.
And we did.
But that was wrong to do it. We'd make a decision out of the legal meeting. It wasn't legal that meeting. It has to be at the business table to be done that way by regular meeting. You can't just get on the phone and say, hey, I'm gonna do this and do that. I tell you what, because you're not the others, you don't want to say it. I'm just telling you, when it comes down to the comptrollers, when they come in here, that's what they're gonna look at.
What is our attorney?
I think you're okay. This is a legal meeting, it's been posted,
It is a thing, yes.
advertised, and, I mean, you tried to do the other, by notice of it, posted it, and, to do your interviews, so, I think you're okay.
Well, that's good enough advice. If the attorney tells you that, we'll go by it. I'm just telling you what's.
I don't see anything to gain. And if somebody's gonna complain, they're gonna complain no matter what. And I don't wanna do anything wrong.
And that's the reason I'm saying what I've been told.
I'm still of the opinion, we've been over backward, everybody knew this. If it's the board's will today to go ahead and make a decision, I say let's make a decision, that's my opinion. But obviously, I'm only one of five, like you are. Other discussion from anybody? Well, gentlemen and ladies, excuse me, I always say that and get in trouble with that. What are we gonna do?
I'm not ready to make a decision today. I'm ready to discuss the applicants.
You think you need more time? Is that what you're saying? Well, I don't. I've been through this now for these couple of months. We've known it was coming. We've got the applicants. We knew them anyway. And I think it's time we make a decision.
Then what's the hurry?
What's the reason not to?
What's the hurry?
I like to have somebody lined up and ready to go. You know, we've seen it on TV, you have and I have 1,000 times, where we've got an interim police chief or an interim somebody at the school system. And it never works. You can do it if you don't have somebody. We've got 3 people, just like Ward said. And that's all we got. We're not gonna get any more. So, what are we waiting for? I just don't see it. I cannot stand the idea of just putting things off and putting things off. From a lawyer standpoint, that's always a bad sign when other people start doing that because they've got something they're worried about. And I don't see it to worry about.
You worried about the sunshine law?
Absolutely not. All this has been published and open, and it's a whole lot more so than when I was hired. There was nothing published about the interview process. Nobody had a problem with that. And then it was voted on at that meeting. All the applicants were there, the public was there, and they voted on it at the meeting.
Are we gonna discuss salary?
It'll be in a motion if we have a motion.
Mr. Wilson made a motion, didn't you?
I'm sorry, me and, as Tony said earlier, we work around too many pieces of heavy equipment to remember. I didn't catch that.
Mr. Wilson
And
made a
what was your motion?
decision today.
To make a decision today? We're gonna do that. We'll have to have a second for that. motion and a second to make a decision today. Any discussion on that? Further discussion? None, we'll vote. All in favor of making a decision today, please say aye. Any opposed by like sign?
I pass.
Abstain or vote no?
I vote no.
Alright, we've got a tie, in which case y'all know I don't like to vote, so I'm voting this time because there is a tie and I have to vote, and I will, and I'm happy with this one. Let's make a decision today. I'm waiting for my secretary to get all her people down, just in case something comes up. So, if we're gonna make a decision today, we gotta make a decision today. We got 3 of the best candidates, and at some point, we're gonna have to make a decision. Somebody's gonna be disappointed and somebody's not. Discussion on which candidate that we choose to be our next general manager. If not, I'm gonna make a motion. I move that we hire Scott Owens to be the next general manager. I move that we leave the salary the same as it is now with our current general manager, considering it's at the bottom of the heap. I don't see any reason to change that. With his contract though, I do have 2 questions that I want to throw out in my motion to change. Have you got, anybody got the contract? If not, I'll run it to you real quick.
Okay. I make a motion to amend your motion.
Okay, great.
That we do not have a contract, we do not do a signed contract with him until 3 months.
Alright, just keep this straight. Let me give you what I was gonna ask in my original motion to change, and then we'll come right back.
Okay.
One, there's a paragraph in there that says at the end of the contract period, we're supposed to give a 6-month notice to the new manager before the contract's to change it. I think that's extremely long. I mean, that's a lot can happen in 6 months. I hope that we put that down from 6 months to 90 days. That's paragraph 3. And in paragraph 8, this one kind of eludes me. It says that the company's to provide, and this is the TVPPA standard contract, but they say to provide a car, an automobile, for professional company use and personal use. And I think we ought to strike that personal use. Not that we're gonna get mad if the guy stops or the girl stops before they go home and stop at Walmart, but I don't see where it ought to be in the contract that we provide a personal automobile.
Can I just say one thing to that?
Yeah.
The reason that has been the way it is because that car is equipped with lights and a radio, and no matter where he's at, because I've been everywhere, you're always expected to come in, and you may need to use that. You're always gonna be, I mean, like I told you, I've been in Billings, Montana, used the Wi-Fi in my car, to communicate back here. I've had to make hurried up trips back. I had to use those lights for that, and so that's the reason that that's always been included in nearly every general manager I know in the system. A lot of them will give them like $800 to $1,000 a month to let them buy their own car. But that's the reason for that, and I'm just telling you why that's in there.
And today's world where everything's done on the telephone anymore, I don't see that it ought to be in there.
Okay.
That's just my motion. Y'all can change that if you need to, but those 2 changes, that's my motion. Now, Mary.
Okay.
Now, what, I think it's procedural. You need to get a second to your motion if somebody will do it, get it on the floor, and if she wants to make an amendment to it.
Very good.
Then she can do that.
Do we have a second on that motion that I just made?
Second.
We have a second. Now,
Okay, I amend your motion that, this is Raymond's contract, the superintendent's contract, what you're referring to?
the one that we've all got here.
Yeah, And so
Yeah, I need to
I'm
talk to her.
proposing
I
that,
ain't got one.
You
I'm
did.
proposing that we, have a new contract made up for whoever we elect as the new superintendent. Because how many of the board members here have even read, the superintendent's contract?
I've not even seen it.
Oh, Ward, you had it when I got it, you were in on,
Raymond, you don't want me to tell what I know about it. I don't even get off into that.
Let me show you.
It was included in the portfolio that I gave you.
In the book that you
It's
got.
in yours,
It's in
your
the book.
portfolio.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I didn't hear it.
And it was, I'm sorry to interject, but it was Raymond's contract that was sent to Stephen Shields in Memphis. Who's an employment attorney, and he reviewed it and made recommendations to the contract.
Is it changing in the word on it what Raymond had in his?
What I just did,
I mean, any other than that?
don't know.
Well, I'm totally against using the superintendent's contract. Because a new contract needs to be made up with the new superintendent.
Okay. So your amendment's to have a new contract for the new general manager.
Yes.
I mean, this is a new contract. It would be a new
No,
contract.
there's language in there that I don't agree with.
Okay.
That it? Alright, so now we have a motion to amend, which has to be voted on before we progress on it, correct? Do I have a second for the motion to amend?
I see.
A second.
So, yeah, you know what the motion is, I'm not sure what it is.
The motion
Just,
is to amend my
I'm
motion.
talking about Mary's.
Yeah. Her motion is to amend my motion by adding the language that we have a new contract drawn up for the new general manager.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes.
I think I am. Trying to write it down is complicated.
And your motion was to
Use
increase
that
the
contract.
salary, your motion was to increase the salary to
No.
the Raymond salary?
Yeah, to have the same salary for the
Same
general
salary.
manager,
Oh, okay.
once he takes that position. That was my motion.
And that's the way I feel about it too. How do we give somebody a 40-year, he's been doing it for 40 years, which got him a test. How do you take somebody who's been 10 years, give him a 40-year salary?
The reason that I say that is, again, because we're the lowest paid of everybody around. And I know, I'm from Big Sandy, $100,000 sounds like a tremendous amount of money. But in the world of business, it's not. It's just not anymore. We can't even get an engineer to apply for the job.
And also, I would like to add that whenever a contract is prepared, that is to be presented to the board to review.
Well, it'd have to be. I mean, we're the ones that.
Well, I understand that the current contract was not.
I would like to, I just submitted mine as a sample to you. As far as the one in my packet. It was included as a sample for you just to have, so y'all can review. Now, you may be referring to Raymond's, but I just included it as part of the packet, because I felt
I
like it
think
was.
she's talking about an older contract. Okay, so we still have this motion to amend, that's the current motion. And a second. Is there any other discussion on the motion to amend, which says we have negotiate a new contract with the new general manager, and anytime a new contract is negotiated, the board has to review it. Got that language.
Can the public interject a thought?
Not yet, no. Board member stuff. Okay. We got the motion to amend, no more discussion on that. We need to vote on the motion to amend. This is a motion to amend my original motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? which was our new general manager, Scott, which takes, of course, the day that he's gone, that Raymond leaves. We changed paragraph 3 and we changed paragraph 8 in the contract. Further discussion on that?
Let me, the one you're referring to is the one that was in Scott's package.
Yes, as with those two
So
changes.
they enter into this contract with him with your amendments.
With my changes.
Your changes.
Where we changed that there's no personal automobile.
So we're agreeing to, accept his,
This contract that was in his packet, with the amendments that James has made in his motion, that's what you'd be voting on.
okay.
We'll be hiring Scott with this contract, subject to those amendments.
Two changes.
But you did put it for 90 days, he don't get the contract till after 90 days.
That's not his motion.
I thought you had that in your motion.
At the end of the contract, the way it's written up, you gotta give a 6-month notice if you don't want the guy to continue working for you. And I think that's extremely long. I said 90 days, because that just cut it in half.
You should say 3 months.
3 months is fine, yeah, that's fine, either way. I just think 6 months, you know, if a guy's contract's ending in 6 months, something bad could happen. You tell him, yeah, you're gonna get hired back, well, what if he does something wrong between, in that 6-month period? I think it's too long. I think we meet once a month, and I think 3 months is fine. I think that's too long. That's my motion. To change that and the personal car. Again, it needs a vehicle, I understand, but I think it needs to be taken out that it's for personal use.
I just never understood how you give a contract on the first time, you don't even know what's gonna happen or what. I've never seen you done that way.
That's where you have that for cause in it. If general manager doesn't perform or does anything bad, then you kick him out. The contract's no good.
Well, okay, never mind.
Discussion. No more discussion, we'll vote. All in favor, please say aye. 2.
No.
All opposed?
No,
No,
2 opposed.
not against Scott.
no, it's
Oh,
not.
we understand. Tie. And that means I'm gonna vote again, and I'm voting yes. Still make the motion, I vote. Any further business or discussion about any of these issues that we've got? Any other new business, period?
I just think we should put the electric company in a sustained boundary right here doing what you just done. It's my thought, I just want that, let's say in the minutes, I just really think we've been, did it, our electric system and the wages. We've not even seen the man in the performance. You're giving him a contract right here on the start. I just don't see that as good for a company to do that, and that's just my thought, I just want it in a minutes.
Well, I agree, I mean, Scott, his performance, there's no question about his performance.
True.
I think he will be an excellent replacement.
But
But I do contest what was done here today, because I know his application was in the binder that he sent, but I didn't see it. Maybe not, I don't know if everybody has read it or not. Did you read the contract? You did? Okay.
I didn't see the contract.
Did you, Mr. Wilson?
I
Did
didn't
you
see
read
it
the
until I got
contract?
here today. I read it today, he gave me his copy, and I said, oh, I read it.
Would you mind telling me a little bit, in generalities, what it is?
Sure, we'll get a copy of it.
We've covered so much today, and it's all run together.
Okay.
Well, I think we We've done a poor job today.
Yeah, I definitely oppose what we're doing.
Mary says we've done a poor job.
Yes, we have.
You want that in the minutes?
I want that in a minute.
Alright, okay.
I didn't hear what Ward said, I'm sorry, because I was writing
I
that
oppose it,
down.
I just think it's a bad thing what we're doing for this company. I just,
I got it.
Any other business? Old ordinance? When we're out of business, the chairman will always entertain a motion to hold on.
Did anybody vote? You made the motion for Scott for the position, but I don't have anybody seconding it.
Yeah, Mr. Wilson did.
Is that, okay.
Jerry said
Okay,
he
I
wrote
was
the
just
time.
trying to keep up with everything,
Yeah.
so I wanna make sure I got it right.
Let's get it straight, I don't wanna mess this up, Lord, we've had enough round.
Okay. Okay, so when you three voted yes and they opposed, that's the motion that passes it, so
Yes.
Yes.
the decision.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanna make sure I got it right.
The motion to
And the
amend,
contract
the motion to
approved.
amend failed, so that went back to the original motion, and that's what they ended up
Okay,
voting.
alright.
Did somebody from the public back there wanna talk?
Tony had
Can we
something,
not have it,
Well-
speak?
we obviously done had the part, and I don't mind if the board wants to hear anything Tony wants to say.
What's it, Tony, I can't see, Mr.
He's
John.
here.
Tony, you wanna speak? I think we'll be courtesy.
Not necessarily. The process went as it went. It appears that he demonstrated a contract to you prior to the interview process, and the interview process did not mention contract whatsoever, or I would have been glad to have entertained the thought of providing a salary structure or contract, and evidently that was pre-done, which is okay if that would have been the procedure. I would have been happy to have done that. However, I understand the cause, and that's okay. I feel like that you negotiated it backwards. You hired a general manager now, but you don't have a contract negotiated. That
We
would
do
be
have a
my only
contract.
question.
We do.
I would have thought that you would have negotiated a contract among the general managers and then went from there. In my position, I may not have accepted the contract as it was, and he may not either, I assume he will.
He may
You
not.
made it up.
We
And
changed it.
And he's more than adequate candidate, but that was just a thought process for me. It's neither a positive or a negative, I was just making the board aware that it appears that you negotiated a contract prior to the hiring, rather than you're hiring, and then you're going to negotiate the contract. But that's the board's wishes, so I think that's fine.
Can I speak to that, please? Because if this is public, I'd like it recorded. I read the same advertisement that every candidate saw. Had no interaction with any board member or anything like that. And I chose to put together a professional portfolio based on my history with the electric company, based on knowing my knowledge of Tennessee codes that the general manager typically enters in a contract. I went before a completely separate attorney and had them draw up a contract, a sample. It was not intention to be pre-negotiated or anything like that. It was just, I wanted to put what I felt was my complete application together, which the advertisement did say a resume and cover letter, and I chose to go beyond. There was no intent in anything other than a sample of my contract that I was wanting to ask if considered for the position. And in the binder that was received, there's no talk of salary, there's data presented, but there's no talk of the actual salary that I would ask for. There's no talk of the contract other than a sample is included with a contact number for the lawyer that I worked with to draw it up.
This is kind of what I asked, hoping that would happen, that we'd have a discussion between now and next month of what you do desire for salary. You know, was it 117, 40-year experience, or would you to come in less for the company? I just feel like we robbed the company. For if it means it not that I'll ever hold that against you, it wasn't you. It's a decision of the board members. So I don't ever hold that against you, I want you to understand that. Regardless of what happened or whatever, I think that you're a good man, I really do.
Are you asking me for my opinion on the salary, or what?
No, I don't ask you, I don't want you to put yourself in jeopardy in no way whatsoever. I'm just telling you, I don't hold nothing against you whatsoever, what I'm saying.
I just wanted to clarify that because I do work here, I am the assistant general manager, but I saw the same ad, and I chose to put this together with nobody else's advice. This is what I chose to compile for my application.
further business?
Well, since we don't have, we will not have an assistant superintendent, then I think we need to, advertise. And go through that process. And not run into the same problem that we've had.
I'll take it.
Is that your motion?
But I think you're gonna, I think you're gonna want your new general manager to be able to come back to the board with their proposal as far as, you know, organizational chart and what they feel like, you know, they may need in the way of assistant manager or whatever. I think you need to hear from the new manager about that. And then you may very well want to advertise for some position. I think that'll be up to you, but I think you need to let the new manager come up with his plan for the organization and present that to you. That's just my opinion, because I don't know exactly how he'll want to structure that.
I think in our discussions there too, we might be able to come up with we've discussed today, we don't have a human resource, somebody, if we could combine some jobs somehow, some way. I haven't thought that through, but that's just a thought.
I would say just to the assistant general manager, and I know across all 7 states, somebody as young as Scott that hopefully he's gonna be in there for a long time, and I think he'll do a terrific job. The only reason that I made him the assistant general manager was that I knew 5 years ago that I was nearing the end of my career and that I wanted to train somebody, and carry them to meetings, introduce them to all the contacts, to be the assistant general manager. In my opinion, and again, that's up to him and whatever y'all wanna do, but in my opinion, right now you don't need an assistant general manager. And most companies don't. I know 2 or 3 other managers that are getting ready to retire in the next year or so, and they're starting to name people and bring them on and kind of train them from their company to be able to offer somebody to the board. But I don't think, as young as he is, and again, that's up to him and y'all, but I don't think that would be a position that would need to be filled for a while. That's just my opinion.
I'm looking at Mary and see.
What?
If you wanna continue with that motion,
Oh,
we
no.
will. If you wanna withdraw, we'll let that go.
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
That clears up the housekeeping for the secretary. We've got all kinds of scribbling up here. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. Have a motion and second. That is not discussed. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. We're adjourned. Thank you.
All right, thank y'all, I appreciate it, thank you.
Can you tell me about Jessica?
Party business.
That Dustin wife?
Somebody
Well, I'm looking for her.